I see it now.
Tell him, girl.
When I look into the face of my enemy, I see my brother. I see my brother.
Yeah.
When I look into the face of my enemy, I see my brother. I see my brother.
Yeah, well, I guess I just needed to understand myself much better. Fight that right fight, get that vision much clearer. And the things I can't stand in me keep landing me in predicaments that would make me be a hypocrite if I were to stand in judgment. Ooh, I know our melanin might vary. Various gradient this great planet of ours carry. And it's such a wonderful picture, a colorful concoction. Let them tell it, I would've missed it. It ain't a prison, it's a prism. And I'ma stand with you when they tripping in your town. And I know all lives matter, I'm just focused on yours now. Retiring these pitchforks, cause I seen the sign. What's coursing through your veins is the same as mine, I'm saying.
When I look into the face of my enemy, I see my brother. I see my brother.
What you say?
When I look into the face of my enemy, I see my brother. I see my brother. Forgiveness is the garment of our courage, the power to make the peace we long to know.
Don't tell them, David.
Open up our eyes to see the wounds that bind all of humankind. May our shattered hearts greet the dawn of light with charity and love.
Alright, he just start clap right here. Let him tell him.
When I look into the face of my enemy, I see my brother. I see my brother. When I look into the face of my enemy, I see my brother. I see my
Hey,
Sit down, be humble, sit down.
hey, happy Juneteenth.
Sit
Don't
down,
give us free.
sit down.
Ain't that the reason we in these free?
Be humble, sit down. Be humble, sit down. Be humble, sit down.
I think we need to breathe again.
Every black life matters.
Why you gotta say it?
Black life matters.
You already know.
Every black life matters. Every black life matters.
Come on, church.
Every black
make sure with the day ends, we on the right side of this. Look in the eyes of enemies until the concept of enemy don't even exist.
Every black life matters. Everyone does. Everyone
Are you ready to, have you done a spin move in that dress yet? Right, Liz?
Good morning, everybody. Oh, we're starting out worship with some spins. You can keep spinning. It's okay. I'll do it with you. We'll just do skirt spins. It's a good morning when you can start with a twirl. That's a really good morning. Even in the midst of rainy and dreary, we'll just twirl our way through it and bring some joy. Thanks, Francie, for that. All right, if you are in the building, welcome. We're glad to see you. There are some people making their way in. If you're online, we are glad that you are with us here as well today. Just a couple of announcements that you need to know about. Nothing new today. This week, Wednesday, is our fireside chat. We've been doing these on most Wednesdays this summer. They've been fun and lovely and wonderful ways to just connect and maybe learn something new. I heard this past week we learned a lot of new things about recycling in a new facility that we had no idea about. I love this so much. So you never know what's going to happen on a Wednesday night. So we hope you'll join us. We do not have a host yard yet for this Wednesday. So if you would like to host that fireside chat this week, talk to me, talk to Chris. We'll bring the s'mores. All you have to do is be available. It's pretty easy. So if you would like to do that, let us know. Also this week, Thursday, I have to tell you, if you grabbed an announcement sheet, this announcement is incorrect. The Branch Students Pool Party is Thursday, August 10, not Wednesday, August 9 that I printed in the bulletin. So sorry. Students, if you are going, please, please, please use that QR code. Use your Church Center app. Make sure you sign up so we know how many people are going to be there. We would love to know that relatively soon. So sign up for that. It'll be a fun night of pool and food and good times together. And then on Saturday, it's a week, everybody. Not this Saturday. Nope. Next week, Saturday, is our parking lot sale. Like a garage sale, but better because it's bigger and great fun to do it all together. So if you have stuff to donate to this parking lot sale, we would really love all of that here by next Sunday, just so we know how much we have and so we can make some plans. So if you are donating things, talk to me or Chris or CJ and Elizabeth, and we can make sure we get those things here. Or you can bring them next Sunday, and we'll collect them here as well. Yes, CJ has something to add. Beautiful. So if still, yes. Perfect. So to reiterate, CJ said he is willing to pick up from you or make arrangements. So if you need that help, let us know. And even if you're not planning to be there the day of the sale, we would love for you to still register on this QR code or your Church Center app so we know how many people to expect and how much stuff to expect. Okay? That would be very, very helpful. All right. If you have been around this summer at all, you know that we have been talking about this building a lot in anticipation of taking ownership of it in the fall. So we thought it would be fun to play a little trivia each Sunday. So it's our trivia time, and there's chocolate. I maybe don't know the actual answer to this question, so maybe I get chocolate if I get it right. No, I'm just kidding. I will share. All right, so we've been talking a lot about partnerships and all of our partners in this building and how beautiful and lovely that always is. Who knows? We'll take guesses, so you have to raise your hand. Who knows the year that the branch actually moved into this building? Bethany, what's your year? 2005. Janelle. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Lindsay, was that your answer? Calvin, did you have a different answer? Sorry, or was that Clarence? Which one of you had your hand up? 2004? 2006? CJ, go ahead. 6,000. Oh, in the future, we're coming back. I love it. All right. Surprise, surprise. Bethany knew this answer. So, do you want chocolate? Can you have these? All right. But you know what? In 2004, am I right on this, Chris? Conversations began to talk about the branch, right? So 2004 is actually also correct. Oh, I got it to you. Congratulations. If you know the story of how we came to be in this space, it is a beautiful story of New Life Church saying, hey, our time together is drawing to a close. And we don't want to just slip away into the night. We want to do something good. Even as that church community closed its doors, they said to the branch, come. We welcome you with wide open arms. And do whatever you want in the building. Paint, take out the pews. Maybe within reason. Don't demolish things. But they were so hospitable and gracious and allowed the branch to have a really beautiful start. So that is a story that I love. I wasn't here then, but I love to hear that story because it's such a beautiful example of working together and how partnership has been central to the life of the branch since day one. So we wanted to share that story with you. Enjoy the chocolate. We'll have more next week. All right, as we move into worship this morning, we will get to a greeting spot, I promise. We're going to do that just a little bit later, though. We wanted to first give a little space to just take a breath, to slow down a little bit. If you're anything like me, the 1st of August hits, and you're like, I have to cram everything in I can in the summer. I signed up for the summer reading program yesterday. I'm cramming what I can in, and I will finish it. So even all the good, all the fun, all the wonderful things that summer brings, it's still busy, right? So one of the gifts of this rhythm we have to gather here on a Sunday morning is to simply be and to slow down for a minute and to be present in whatever moment this is and with whoever is around you. To simply breathe. So we're going to start with Lindsay's going to read a prayer here in a second, and then we're going to play a song that we've played a couple of times before. It's called Slow Me Down, and I invite you to watch and breathe. If you would like to sing along, or maybe even if you want to find a mindfulness posture to really focus your mind and heart today on that would be wonderful. And then after that, we're going to have a couple of minutes of silence for us to say, what is it that I need today? Do I need a relational connection? Do I need to go talk to somebody? Do I need to cry? Do I have tears that need to come out? Do I need a moment of joy and laughter, whatever that is, to sit and really say, what is it that I need in this moment? And what is a step that I can take toward that? And then we'll have our greeting time so that you can take a step toward what you need today. Okay? All right. Lindsay's going to come up and offer that prayer, and then we'll watch the
or whatever you're comfortable doing. Holy One, for everything there is a time, And it seems as though time is now our most precious commodity. Our clocks are always running from season to season, and during times of joy and sorrow, work and play, conversation and silence, the clock keeps ticking. Our to-do lists are long, our calendars are full. Good Shepherd, slow us down. For now, simply remind us that in this moment, we need only to be, and that is enough. Amen.
Oh, good shepherd, would you teach me how to rest? I'm rushing on, will you make me to lie down? Will you build a fold by the waters that refresh? Will you call my name and lead me safely out? From my anxious drive to labor on and on, from the restless grind that has put my mind to sleep, will you call me back and gently slow me down? Will you show me now what to lose and what to keep? Oh, good shepherd, oh, good friend, slow me down, slow me down. Oh, good shepherd, oh, good friend, slow me
knowing what you need is not always easy. Naming what you need is not always easy. Asking for what we need is really, really hard. And it takes a step of courage. So maybe in this moment, maybe as we move into this time of greeting, maybe it's a courageous step for you to take to say to somebody, hey, I need a hug. Or maybe it's a courageous step for you to say, I need to be by myself for a second and I'm going to go get a cup of coffee. Whatever that is for you in these next few minutes, I invite you to do any or all of those things. Say hello to somebody around you.
Well, hi, everybody. Good morning. Hey, if you're a branch kid, a young one, and you would like to go hang out somewhere other than here, Bethany is going to take a group and have some playtime today. So she's in the back. And if, again, you want to do that, go for it. If you are young and would like to stay in here, or you are not so young and are staying in here, and you are a person who would be helped by some tactileness, there's a cart in the back that we call the art cart, and it is available to anyone and everyone all morning. Teresa, would you start the real quick? Thanks. One thing I did not do. Right. So we have been walking through the book of Acts, not covering every story. We won't probably even get to the end of it. There's only a couple weeks left here in the summer. But making our way through and talking about what we see there. The tagline that we've been using is not ours. We didn't create it. It comes from Willie James Jennings, African-American theologian and scholar who wrote a commentary on the book of Acts, and in it he calls the book of Acts, if you want to sum it up, it is a revolution of the intimate. Intimate meaning close or familiar. So Acts is the story of us becoming familiar with God in a way that humanity had not experienced. It's a story of us becoming familiar with us. There's a closeness within the tribe, and it's a story of closeness between us and them, the outsider, the other. It's all revolutionary, pretty radical, upside down sort of stuff. And so this is a dominant theme. But it's not the only theme, or there are other maybe sub-themes that come from it, like radical generosity. We see this really wild giving, selfless giving in the book of Acts. An ever-expanding inclusiveness. More and more people are included. But the theme we're going to talk about today is connected to this, and it's probably inevitable. It's the theme of conflict. It's quite interesting how often conflict comes up in the book of Acts. I was thinking this week, we could have done a whole series on just the conflicts found in the book of Acts. Interesting. In fact, like right away in chapter 6, which is just weeks, we don't know the exact time, but it's shortly after this outpouring of the divine breath, what we call the Holy Spirit most often. Right after this enormous gift comes this. As the believers rapidly multiplied, there were rumblings of discontent. It's not a great line. The Greek-speaking believers complained about the Hebrew-speaking believers, saying that their widows were being discriminated against in the daily distribution of food. So there's some daily distribution of food to women, a widow in that day and time especially, had no choice based on the way society was based other than to rely on the generosity of others. So there's some sort of daily distribution, and it seems like there is some discrepancies in how that food is being handed out and to whom. And the text doesn't shy away from the fact that this is ethnic. Greek-speaking, Hebrew-speaking. These are people from different cultures, all Jews, but culturally different, ethnically different. And there's some discrimination happening. Does this sound familiar? So that's like right out of the gate. Chapter 14, a different kind of conflict. Paul and Barnabas have been traveling to various towns. They're in Iconium, which is in modern-day Turkey, kind of almost right in the middle of modern-day Turkey. Iconium, and they're telling people about this story of Jesus. And the people of the town were divided in their opinion about Paul and Barnabas. And that sounds harmless enough. And then the next verse says, then a mob of Gentiles and Jews along with their leaders decided to attack and stone them. This is not like, we just disagree with you a little bit on your take. This is like, we're going to kill you. You are so offensive to us. We're going to kill you. A town divided based on different worldviews. Does this sound familiar at all to anyone? Chapter 15, where we're going to spend most of our time today, is the bulk of that chapter is a story of really significant, conflict. We'll get to it. That conflict resolves itself quite miraculously. It's incredible. Our conflicts don't always resolve themselves. This one reaches a resolution, and there's a lot of joy at the end of the story we're going to look at today. And then look at what happens next. Barnabas, I didn't maybe put all of this in here. Paul and Barnabas decide to travel together and to revisit the towns that they had already been to in Greece and Turkey. Barnabas agreed, good idea, let's go, and wanted to take along John Mark, but Paul disagreed strongly since John Mark had deserted them in Pamphylia and had not continued with them in their work. Their disagreement was so sharp that they separated. We're going to see in just a moment that chapter 15 begins with Paul and Barnabas together, like arm in arm, partners, traveling through this ancient world, risking their lives. They were the two who were going to be stoned in what we had looked at a moment ago. These guys are like tight friends, companions. They're the ones who in chapter 15 go to Jerusalem and argue for this expansive view of the gospel. But there's a disagreement that can't be solved. Okay. Why does the book of Acts have so much conflict? Why does the Bible itself really have so much conflict? If you think about it, the authors or some scribe down the line throughout history could have just gently erased these little stories. There's no reason to have to include this. You could have ended with the story of things ending well, on a high note, and look at us, there's resolution, and just skip this part. Why does the Bible include it? Why are they in our scriptures? I'm not exactly sure why. I won't presume to know for certain, but perhaps it is trying to help us understand that conflict is normal. That if you are alive and breathing, this is going to be a part of your life. It is normal to be in conflict, which is not the way I think we think about conflict in our culture. Conflict is bad, yes? Oh no, you're in conflict. Oh no, you had a fight last night. Oh no, I'm in conflict with so-and-so. Maybe this is the end of our relationship. Maybe it is, but we tend to really only view conflict in pretty negative terms. And I get it. But perhaps we need to shift the way we think about conflict. So we're going to see if we can do that today a little bit. But before we get to our story, let me invite you to head here, whether you're online or in this place. This is going to take you to a Google Doc where I want to invite you to just add a thought or two. The questions you'll find there in the Google Doc are questions like this. What issues today are causing great conflict? What are the two camps that form around various issues? You can think societally here, of course, you're going to think societally, but also you can think closer to home, more personally. I'm not asking you to share details about a conflict in your life right now. That's not what I'm asking you to do. But just generally, what happens at work? What happens in your neighborhood or with friends or siblings or parents? So take a minute here. Enter stuff in. I'm going to give you a second to do that, and we'll see what we come up with. What are the issues today? What are the conflicts? What are the sources of tension? I did learn from my brother sending me an article that Google thought it was kind of a clever idea to make all of the users in documents like this anonymous animals. And you'll notice a bunch of extinct animals that are in here and very endangered animals. And anyway, kind of fun and interesting. And I'm just noticing that as some of you are cheetahs and turtles and rhinos and things of that nature. Yeah, the hot dog one, that is hot. That is a hot one. We won't touch that one today, certainly. So you can see here, if you're in this document, we've got a lot of varied things. Yeah, and some of them are more fun. Conflicts actually can be kind of fun. They can create this little tension that can be enjoyable even. I'm thinking of the hot dog thing. And then we got stuff that isn't at all, you know. Someone put politics, and no doubt, of course, we could get more granular there and talk about particular parties or particular issues that get politicized. Some of those are in here, like climate change, gender, books. Those are huge. The political forces in our world are certainly trying to leverage those for their benefit currently. Race, obviously, yep. Black lives versus all lives matter. And I don't know if you caught the song that we were playing at the beginning of the morning as folks were coming in, but that speaks directly to that conflict. Yeah, choice versus life. This, I think, maybe a not quite true dichotomy, a false dichotomy. But I love some of this other stuff that's in here too, like parenting styles. If you've ever been in a room or a group with parents, and you'll note that someone may share their parenting style, and it can get heated real quick when someone else doesn't agree about what kids should be allowed to do or what schools you should send your kids to or any number of things, of course. Here's a question. Thanks for these. Keep them coming. How do you feel when you read this list? What are you noticing in your body? Often these decisions are made without talking or including the people who are actually impacted by it or are the ones being debated. Yep. Do you notice any tightness in your body as you look at this list? Tension in your body? Your shoulders a little higher? Is your jaw a little clenched? I want you to feel whatever you would normally feel about our modern day debates and differences, so that when we read this story here, which is about an issue that does not matter to us, I would say by and large, you can still feel what it is like to be in a situation where it feels like everything is at stake. Because the story that we're reading about today would have felt that way to the people in it, that everything was at stake. Their jaws would have been clenched. They would have felt the tension. Yep. So feel that if you can. Hold that. Notice that if you're able to here. Acts 15, 1-21. And we're just going to go straight through it here. While Paul and Barnabas were at Antioch of Syria, some men from Judea, so Paul and Barnabas are north of Jerusalem, a good days, probably more than that, probably a good couple days travel, and some folks from Judea, from Israel, have made their way up to teach the believers. Unless you are circumcised as required by the law of Moses, you cannot be saved. Now again, this issue to us does not carry much weight. But this was everything. Because circumcision was the physical mark of belonging. And if you go back and read the Old Testament passages about this and when this is first introduced, God seems to very clearly say that if you stop doing this, you will be cut off. I went back and read it this week and I was like, woo, dang. This is serious. Like there's no, what's God saying here? No, at that time, it's pretty clear as Israel understood it. So some folks from Judea come up and they're like, hey, we have something really important to tell you. This is critically important. Paul and Barnabas disagreed with them, arguing vehemently. Already it's hot. Finally, the church decided to send Paul and Barnabas to Jerusalem, accompanied by some local believers, to talk to the apostles and elders about this question. The church sent the delegates to Jerusalem, and they stopped along the way in Phoenicia and Samaria to visit the believers. They told them, much to everyone's joy, that the Gentiles too were being converted. When they arrived in Jerusalem, Barnabas and Paul were welcomed by the whole church, including the apostles and elders. They reported everything God had done through them. But then some of the believers who belonged to the sect of the Pharisees stood up and insisted the Gentile converts must be circumcised and required to follow the law of Moses. So the apostles and elders met together to resolve this issue. At the meeting, after a long discussion, Peter stood and addressed them as follows. Brothers, you all know that God chose me from among you some time ago to preach to the Gentiles so that they could hear the good news and believe. God knows people's hearts, and he confirmed that he accepts Gentiles by giving them the Holy Spirit, just as he did to us. He made no distinction between us and them, for he cleansed their hearts through faith. So why are you now challenging God by burdening the Gentile believers with a yoke that neither we nor our ancestors were able to bear? We believe that we are all saved the same way, by the undeserved grace of the Lord Jesus. Everyone listened quietly as Barnabas and Paul told about the miraculous signs and wonders God had done through them among the Gentiles. When they had finished, James stood and said, "Brothers, listen to me. Peter has told you about the time God first visited the Gentiles to take from them a people for himself, and this conversion of Gentiles is exactly what the prophets predicted. As it is written, afterward I will return and restore the fallen house of David. I will rebuild its ruins and restore it, so that the rest of humanity might seek the Lord, including the Gentiles, all those I have called to be mine. The Lord has spoken, the one who made these things known so long ago." And so my judgment is that we should not make it difficult for the Gentiles who are turning to God. Instead, we should write and tell them to abstain from eating food offered to idols, from sexual immorality, from eating the meat of strangled animals, and from consuming blood. For these laws of Moses have been preached in Jewish synagogues in every city on every Sabbath for many generations. The text goes on. Everyone's in agreement. They write a letter. They send Paul, Barnabas, and a few others back to Antioch to deliver the letter, and everyone in Antioch is very happy. There's so much to say about this story. Let me just note a couple of things that we're not going to get into today. How is it that this is the resolution? This circumcision thing, it had been preached in Jewish synagogues in every city on every Sabbath for many generations. It was a bedrock principle. How does that one get set aside and these other ones don't? Interesting, isn't it? And we're not let into the conversation that goes on to lead to this resolution, but somehow they land here. And then the other note I'll just make is that these things that they say, hey, these things though we are going to hold you to. Freedom in some ways, not freedom in these things end up going away too. In time. And in not the too far distant future. You can read other books in the New Testament in which Paul is arguing, for example, about eating food offered to other gods, and that it's okay if your conscience is clear. Don't do it if it's going to cause someone else to stumble. That's that passage you may have heard before. But Paul, who's here at this meeting and agrees to this, later on comes to the conclusion that actually that isn't critical. Just note that. This kind of ever evolving. And if you think then that was the end, when Paul came to that conclusion and started telling finally we've got all things figured out. If you think that's the story, of course it isn't. And of course it isn't. Look at us today. We're still trying to figure it out. That should tell us something, I think, about anyone who thinks that they've got Christianity pinned down. I just don't buy it. I think this thing of following Jesus is ever evolving. And we should be really careful when we think we know exactly what we should do or what the other person should do. We should just be very careful about that. So, again, lots we could talk about there, but I want to say a few things about conflict. This passage does not give us, hey, here's 3 steps. Good news, everyone. Follow these 3 things anytime you have any sort of conflict, and it will resolve itself, and it will be wonderful. That doesn't exist, of course. But I think this passage might offer us some things nonetheless to consider. And the first is so obvious it might be missed. But the first thing that happens in this story is that the people involved in the conflict lean into it. Paul and Barnabas disagreed with them, arguing vehemently, and finally the church decided to send Paul and Barnabas to Jerusalem, accompanied by some local believers, to talk to the apostles and elders about this question. All right, everybody, we need to figure this one out. Paul and Barnabas were sending you on a long journey. I'm going to send some other folks with you. This is important. And we see something similar in Jerusalem itself. The Pharisees stand up and say, hey, we think everyone should be circumcised, whether they're Jewish or not. And this verse, again, so small it could be easily missed. But the apostles and elders met together to resolve the issue. I think that we as human beings lean away from conflict more often than not. There's a very small number of people in my life that I've known who really genuinely thrive on difference. It's a very small number. There's another small group of people who have learned, this is just my experience, who have learned to lean into conflict. Most of us, I think, lean away, if we can. We ignore it, if that's possible. We downplay it, if we're able. Or we just try and avoid it altogether. That's one kind of strategy of leaning away. The other is maybe a leaning in that's on steroids, where someone becomes so angry, hostile, arrogant in the midst of conflict. That's another way to deal with it, right? Is to lean in, but to come with fists ready. This story, I think we see something different. I don't know if it's the perfect example of resolving conflict. We're not privy to the details of the conversation and how that all unfolded, but there does seem to be a leaning in. And this is something I have not done most of my life. I often hear today people describe themselves as conflict averse. I think that's a dumb term. You're not averse. I'm not conflict averse, as if somehow there's like forces that keep me from being able to deal with conflict. No, I'm just scared of conflict. I've had to start owning my fear around it. Because I don't want to find out what might happen if we do go after this issue that's between us. I'm scared. I think we probably all are in different times and in different ways. Worried about what the outcome will be. Will the relationship hold together? Will I be treated well? These are legitimate concerns. The fear is understandable. But I'm learning that the only way I grow, and I think the only way that groups of people have the chance to go deeper together, is by leaning in. And this is true on big, big issues that are hard and complex and difficult, like many in the list here. And I think it's true in your most personal relationships with a child, a partner, roommate, a parent. It's only when we lean in that there's the chance. No guarantee. I wish there was a guarantee. But there's the chance, the opportunity for growth when we lean in. And when we don't, there isn't. There's no chance for it. Now listen, this issue is complex and complicated and nuanced, and I'm going to say some things today that I'm sure you're going to be like, hold on. Aren't there some situations in our life where you're wrong, Chris? I'm sure yes is the answer, Like some of you may be saying, well, hold on, there's someone in my life that's unsafe to be in conflict with. Yes, there very well might be, and if there is, you would be wise to not engage in conflict with them, right? So there's lots of nuance here. There's lots of wisdom required, a lot of deliberation needed. But I think generally we tend to be people who lean away. And I wonder if this passage encourages us to lean in. Here's another thing I see in this story, and it's the way in which the people in it are learning the stories of the other. The church sent the delegates to Jerusalem, and they stopped along the way in Phoenicia and Samaria to visit the believers, and they told them, much to everyone's joy, that the Gentiles too were being converted. This is Paul and Barnabas traveling down to Jerusalem for this council, and along the way they're doing what? They're telling stories. And when they get to Jerusalem, everyone listened quietly as Barnabas and Paul told about the miraculous signs and wonders God had done through them among the Gentiles. Bethany and I go to a gym that we've been going to for a number of years, and she's way more popular than I am there, not surprisingly. She knows many more people and got invited to a Christmas party this last year. And I got to go as her plus one, not because anyone knew me, but it's fine. I'm not bitter about it. So a lot of these folks were people she knew, and I didn't know really anyone. People were familiar, but I didn't know them. But when we got to the party, there was a gentleman there who I, again, recognized. And I recognized him because I had seen him getting into his car. We've been going to this gym for years, so I've seen him kind of morning after morning get into his car. And I remembered him because of the decals that are on his car, the stickers that are on his car. He is someone that I have made all kinds of judgments about because of those decals and stickers. Never met him, couldn't tell you his name, but I made all kinds of judgments. And somehow that night, we ended up playing this arcade game. This place that we were at was at someone's home, and it was quite impressive. They had an arcade room, like half a dozen different arcade games. And we played one together, and when you don't have to pay for it, you just get to keep playing. So we played for probably 45 minutes one game, and still didn't beat it, but it's fine. And that kind of sparked a bit of a relationship. And so then we went and got something to eat. We sat down, and I heard a little bit about him, and very simple stuff. He didn't open his heart to me. There was no come to Jesus moment, in which I led him to Christ. None of that, happened. We just kind of swapped stories. So simple. But what happened as a result was that I could no longer see him the same way, and I could no longer treat him the same way. The power of knowing the story of another person is that it rehumanizes them. The people that we are in conflict with and that we disagree with, we dehumanize. And do it usually without any awareness that we are doing it. But when you slap a label or a category on someone, that is what you have done. You're trading their humanity for a category. You're now seeing them as again, a label, not as a person. But when we hear the stories of people, when we sit down or somehow get to know something about the person, they become rehuman again. That song that was playing at the beginning of the morning, when I look at the face of my enemy, I see my sister, I see my brother. The only way that's possible, or I don't know if it's the only way, but one of the ways that becomes possible is that you've known the story. You've come to learn something about that person. So when you are leaning in on whatever the issue might be and whatever the conflict might be, and again, whether we're talking societal issues or we're talking about an issue in your home around which there is conflict, and you're trying to lean in or at least stay and not lean away or run away, one of the best things you might do is to try and learn the story. So like when Bethany and I are in conflict around something that involves parenting, she thinks we should do this, and I think we should do this. One of the best things I can do is to ask her questions to understand her story. I obviously know her story, but what's the story about why you feel this way about this decision? What's at the heart of it, right? See how this plays out? Again, societal levels, pick your political enemy. If you can, learn the story of your political enemy and learn the story of your partner or your child or your roommate or your whomever. Be curious about them. Now again, some people are not safe in our lives. I'm not advocating that you try and get curious about those folks or even lean into them. That may not be the right move. But in other interactions and in other situations, this story maybe points us to learning the stories. And then when we do that, here's the final thing I'll just mention, is that we can lead with commonality. This is Peter talking, and it's really quite striking. Maybe it got lost because we read a lot there for a moment. But he says, God knows people's hearts, and he confirmed that he accepts Gentiles, the people in question. Should we accept them? Should we make them become circumcised? He accepts them, has accepted them by giving them the Holy Spirit, just as he did to us. He made no distinction between us and them, for he cleansed their hearts through faith. So why are you now challenging God by burdening the Gentile believers with a yoke that neither we nor our ancestors were able to bear? We believe that we are all saved the same way, by the undeserved grace of the Lord Jesus. When we are in conflict, when there is difference between us, we tend to lead with that difference. It's our starting point, it's our ending point, it is the ways in which we are not the same, the issue between us about which we disagree. And I wonder if this passage isn't inviting us to instead lead with what we have in common. And what I like about Peter here is that he has to almost go to the basic core commonality. We're all saved by undeserved grace. That's what Peter goes back to. I think sometimes with our enemies, we have to do the same thing. We're not going to find much in common at all. And so we're going to have to go back to very core, fundamental, elemental things like you're a human and I'm a human. You are scared. I am scared. You want what you think is best. I want what I think is best. Right? This is hard when you are in a place of serious disagreement and conflict to see anything that you might have in common. But I think it's critical. And to try and lead with that. It's not to ignore the difference or downplay it, but to start with what we might have in common. I end up meeting with a lot of pastors. I even think about Pastor Felician, who leads Gate Baptist here. They'll be in this space in another hour and a half or so. I know that Felician and I do not agree on a lot of things theologically. I just know that. But what we do when we get together is we find what we have in common. And I don't want to say to you that that makes everything okay, or that we haven't had to have some hard conversations. But relationship becomes possible because I think we tend to we lead with what we share. And again, with our kind of fiercest enemies, we're probably going to have to drill down to the basic stuff. You're a human, I'm a human. You hold your position because you're scared. Guess what? I'm scared too, right? You want this. Well, I want that too. We're just trying to get at it from different angles. Are you hearing me? Does this make sense? So let me invite you to just consider these three pieces from this story and to just ask yourself, is there a growing edge here for me? And it might be right out of the gate, the need to lean in more because you're conflict averse. Or maybe those other two, which are really tools in the tool belt. Do you need to lean into one of them? Practice it more. Is there a conflict in your life right now about which one of these might be helpful? The people in Acts 15 felt this conflict deeply and strongly. This kept people up at night. It made people raging mad. It made people question everything about faith, the faith that they thought they knew, about what God was doing. This was as revolutionary as we can imagine. Maybe you're feeling something similar too. You're raging mad. You're hurt. You're questioning what this all means. You don't know how to handle this conflict. You don't know the next step. And one of the things that I take away from this story, even though we're not privy to all of the conversations that they had, and we don't know exactly how this all worked out and why they landed where they landed, there is movement here. Movement that creates joy and that binds people together. And I believe that the same thing is true for us today. There's no guarantees about how this all works out when we're in conflict. But it is possible, I think, to experience growth and connection and even joy when we lean in. So may we be those people, as hard as it is. May we trust God's Spirit in the same way that these folks seem to have. And may we be surprised at what God does when we lean in. Let me invite you, if you're thinking about this and you're feeling overwhelmed, or you have something going on in your life, or it's just, again, one of these societal issues and you're not sure like what to do, let me invite you to connect with Teresa or myself. Not because we have the answer, but because we can be a listening place, a place of support. And sometimes that's what we need. I love that this is all happening, of course, in community, right? And we need the same thing when we are sometimes in these places. We need someone who can listen to us and support us, and we would be happy to do that, as I know others in this room would be too. And on that note of community and coming together, we're going to share this meal. Thanks to Matt and Lindsay, and especially, of course, to Nolan and Ellie, who did the bulk of the work, I know, getting this communion stuff ready for us. Would love to have some people help serve this morning, so be thinking about that. If you'd like to do that, you can come up in just a second. If he was old enough, it'd be great to have Forrest do it, because he is ready. He's got energy to do it. Yeah, we'd have to give him the gluten-free crackers to start, I think. We'd work him in. Yep. This meal reminds us of so many things. I mean, we share it every week, and every week it has potentially a slightly different meaning. What a gift. It's deep. And so every week, I often will say something to introduce communion, but I never pretend that I know what this meal might need to mean for you this week. And so I invite you to come to the table today just open-heartedly, ready to receive whatever it might be. And maybe it is a reminder of the way in which you are loved, or it is a reminder of the way in which we are bound together. And maybe it's something else entirely. Maybe you're just tired, worn out, and you need to be fed. You need to receive strength. Whatever it is, know that you're welcome to come, to take and to eat. We'll have a couple folks up here and a couple in the back. Take your bread and your cup. I almost always forget to say this, and just take it back to your seat. You all know the drill, and we'll eat and drink it together. But is anyone willing, able to help serve this morning? Come on up if you are. You don't even have to raise your hand, because probably Nolan will have to wait here until someone feels pressured to come up and do it. And which would you like to do? Go for it. We got our bread, folks, so we're halfway there. Who else would like to? Perfect. Thanks, Kevin. Anyone willing to serve juice here this morning with this good-looking young man? I mean, what a fine... You can do it with him. I can go back. Here's gluten-free if you have someone who comes up. Okay, you can get them. Isaiah, you want to help? Yeah, man. There you go. Head on back to your dad. Awesome. Friends, the gifts of God for the people of God offered to us freely and undeserved. Come and receive these good gifts here this morning. Probably should have given him two. He needs a couple. He needs extra double help next time. Can you get it? Right, exactly. My turn. No, it's the body of Christ broken for you. So sad. Come on up. Yeah. Hi. Okay, you're good. I was thinking maybe I get to hold you, but not quite. Yeah. Don't worry. I'll keep an eye on him. This gift of we break bread every week, and it reminds us, I think, of our brokenness, but also the fact that we are made whole. Our brokenness isn't the end of the story. So, would you guys like to have some communion real quick? Come on up if you'd like to. You can take a piece of bread if you want, in a cup. Yep. Excellent. You're the last one, so feel free to just stick your mitts right in there. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Good work. Yeah. Yeah, might as well. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hi. Glad you made it. Here's one that's not quite so full. You got it? Okay. I'm going to put some bread in your hand. There you are, my lady. Oh, so tiny. Mm-hmm. There you go. Whichever one you'd like. I'm glad they made it a little more rich and full. Friends, the body of Christ broken for you. Take and eat. And the cup of the new covenant, or the cup of blessing, poured out so that we may be filled. Let's take and drink. We have some baskets we'll pass around for the cups here in just a moment. But Teresa's going to lead us in a song as we near the end of our time together. Forrest will be free to roam. That would be great.
And it will be wonderful. We're going to sing this song that we've sung a couple of times before. It's such a simple little song, but I love the words, especially in a morning when we're talking about conflict and leaning in. It's teach us your ways, and it talks about learning from one another, learning stories from one another, right? And to really lean in to whatever one another is feeling. So I invite you to stand as we sing this song together, as we end our morning together.